And Pedro, a very, very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for being here today with me.
Hi, Raja. How are you? I'm honored and humbled to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Delighted to have you here. Thank you so very much. And I was looking at the Cannes Lions Hall that you had. Absolutely amazing. How many awards did you guys win in all for Anheuser-Busch InBev?
Yeah, we got 40 this year, 40 Lions.
Only 40? Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And Pedro, a very, very warm welcome. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And Pedro, a very, very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for being here today with me.
Hi, Raja. How are you? I'm honored and humbled to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Delighted to have you here. Thank you so very much. And I was looking at the Cannes Lions Hall that you had. Absolutely amazing. How many awards did you guys win in all for Anheuser-Busch InBev?
Yeah, we got 40 this year, 40 Lions.
Only 40?
Was a good year.
Unbelievable. I sort of fell off my chair when I saw 40 awards for you guys. Hearty congratulations to you and your team. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Kudos to you.
Thanks so much.
This is fantastic. So, folks, thank you very much for joining both me and Pedro to have this conversation. We are going to cover a number of things out here. Hopefully, you'll find this of value and of relevance, and hopefully, both of us, between the two of us, will be able to give you some insights and some perspectives that are a little probably unusual and unconventional. So, to start off with, Pedro, to just kick off, I don't know if you hide your age very well or you look really young, but the point is, you're so accomplished at a really fairly young age. And I just wanted to understand what has been your career journey like, and what would you attribute this massive success to be accomplishing such a high position at such a young age?
So, Raja, first, the age is not as young as you think it is. But I have to say the bad news is that I think luck plays a huge role. And I was very lucky to fall into the right company, that had a culture that I immediately, admired and fit into. And throughout my career, I also was lucky enough to fall into the right place at the right time. So I joined the company back in 2000, and Brahma and Antarctica, the two brewers in Brazil, had just got together, and they were starting an international expansion. And I fell into the mergers and acquisitions department, which at the time was, a massive driver of growth for the company. I did that for some years, and the company has done big acquisitions and mergers with Interbrew, with Quilmes. And after that, I decided to have some fun. So I decided to learn something new, and I decided to move into marketing. And at the time, we are going from more developing markets where it was really a push kind of a company, right? Whoever could distribute better the beer probably will win. We got exposed to developed markets where marketing was really the competitive advantage. So I moved into marketing, I think, at the right time. And then in 2015, we started ZX Ventures, which is our venture arm, right at the time that, a lot of startups were picking up in food and beverages. And we were very lucky to be able to do a bunch of partnerships. So I think, it was a lot of luck of being, in the right place at the right time and in areas that really were major drivers of growth for the company.
I think you're being very modest about it. But the fact of the matter is, not only being in the right situation, but how do you make the most of those situations? I think that's kudos to you. And it's also interesting to see that you're not a marketer right from the beginning and only a pure marketing specialist, but you have been in other areas, including mergers and acquisitions, which, by the way, I spent time as well, several years in mergers and acquisitions. So I guess that brings a new perspective to you and to any professional when they look at themselves as more general managers and business managers as opposed to marketing specialists. And that's one of the points I keep writing in my book, Quantum Marketing. And it's so very true. But here are a couple of things I would say. From even when you are in the right kind of a position at the right time, what would have contributed to your success?
Yeah.
Can you shed some light on that?
For sure. I mean, there are things that you can do to help, right? And sometimes looking in hindsight, you realize the things that made a difference at the time. I would say that three things, usually helps luck, right? One of them is to really know what you're good at. Very few people are good at everything. People talk a lot about these days about ambidextrous leaders that can operate and produce value today very well, but they can also create the future. It's very rare that somebody's outstanding in both, and it's good for you to have self-awareness and understand what are you good at, and then have a team that can complement your strengths. So this one I think is a big one. A second one is to be passionate, about that. Sometimes you are passionate about things that you're good at, and not necessarily true. When I was very young, I used to love to play volleyball. And for the ones that know me, I don't have the height to play volleyball really. So, I knew that wouldn't work out for me, So I think sometimes knowing what you're good at, but then marrying that with your passion and what you love doing every single day, I think is it's a big one. And then the third one, and understand a little bit where you can make an impact, where your genes and your passion can deliver the most value. And again, that part, I think it wasn't totally conscious, but I was at the right time in the areas of the company that deliver a lot of value. First mergers and acquisition on our global expansion, then marketing, then ventures, and now back in marketing. So positioning yourself to be in an area that can really be a driver of growth, I think that helps as well.
That's awesome. Actually, one of the few things that I have noticed in my own career over the last 36 years, and I have been in different industries and different sides of the company. Only half of my career I have been in marketing, and the other half I have been outside of marketing, either managing a division or managing a business or managing a set of other functions than marketing. One of the things you mentioned, it resonates extremely well. It is what you're good at and what you're passionate about. If those two marry, you put your heart and soul. And what you're doing every day doesn't seem like work at all. It seems like fun. You're coming every day to play your most favorite game, so to speak, which is fantastic. But this other point you made is very fascinating, which is in terms of where you can make the most impact as well. I think that's a strategic career choice, as I see, where you can come into your maintenance mode and do something, or you're actually coming and turning around something which is falling apart, or you're letting something take off and you take off together with it. I think the turnaround situations and the takeoff situations of growth, I think these are the two probably which afford the most amount of growth opportunities, even from a career perspective, as opposed to maintaining status quo or doing a good job of maintaining status quo. And that's pretty fascinating. And when I ask myself the question as to what marketers should feel they are good at, I think one of the points, which is a little probably controversial, is while everyone is not equally accomplished at multiple things, in this day and age, you don't have any choice, but you have to be good at many things. So I keep talking about being like a Leonardo da Vinci. You have to be both good with your right brain and your left brain and be able to do a whole bunch of things, which is easier said than done. And many times, everyone is not equally gifted to be able to perform from both sides of their brain. And in which case, probably the solution is to have a team, which is like a Leonardo da Vinci team, where you have got different folks with different capabilities complementing each other and coming together powerfully. But thank you. That's a very powerful point, particularly the one where you are talking about the confluence of the impact, what you're good at, and what you're passionate about. Just moving on, AB InBev is probably one of the biggest powerhouses in terms of sponsorships. And we see the name flashed everywhere, but mostly as your brands, right? Basically, when you look at how you do sponsorships at such a massive scale, I'm a big proponent of sponsorships. And after you answer, I'll tell you why I believe it is so. But what is it that sets you guys apart, your company apart, from everybody else out there who is also sponsoring? how do you bring your sponsorships to life in a different way and create the right kind of impact for your brand and for your business?
Yeah, we are trying to evolve on that, Raj. If you think about historically, sports, music, urban culture, those are huge passion points of our consumers, but they are also massive consumption occasion for us, right? You go to a stadium, people are drinking beer, they are watching, a football match at home, they are drinking beer. So, for us, the sponsorships, they were very good because they were amazing opportunities to create brand, mental availability, but they're also a big commercial opportunity because there's a lot of consumption related to these occasions. Having said that, over the years, I think in the past, being seen as a sponsor was really being seen as somebody that brings something that wouldn't be there if you're not the sponsor. And this thing moved a little bit over the years. Now it's more, people see more sponsors as like people that slap their logos on billboards, and they try to push their brands and interrupt people. So I think this whole world of sponsorship, they really need to go back to the basics of what can I bring, in this passion point that is different and that is new and they wouldn't exist if we weren't there. So to give you an example, we are big sponsors of country music in Brazil. And Brahma, one of our brands, had kind of one of the biggest festivals of country music in the country, and then COVID hit, and we couldn't, have this events anymore. And then we said, how can we go there and create the same level or better level of experience that people would have in a concert in the virtual world? And we knew that just copying, a kind of a concert wouldn't work because, you were watching, you were not dancing, you were not there with your friends, whatever. So the team in Brazil kind of changed the format of the concert to be much more of a conversation, and then kind of the singers are telling stories and they're talking to each other and they interact with people that are at home. So then we became recognized again as being someone that created something new that added value to something that is a passion point of our consumers. So I think we're not there yet. We are having a lot of conversations. Sometimes for the owners of the properties, it's very easy, just to go there and sell a sponsorship for a huge amount of money and to put your name in billboards. For them to give you the flexibility and take the risk of creating something new sometimes is tougher, but that's kind of the direction that we're trying to head.
I guess that's where the differentiation truly happens. And just to share a couple of thoughts about how I look at sponsorships and how in my own company at MasterCard, how we have been approaching it has been a little different, right? And it's not just one model is universally successful. You need multiple models and appropriate to the context of each company. So, for example, what we looked at MasterCard is that storytelling or advertising, the traditional way of communicating, we felt was over-cluttered, and cutting through that clutter in a short window at a high expense, making the right impact on the consumers to move their preference in favor of our brand was getting more and more challenging. So, and just to be provocative to my team, I keep saying that advertising as we know it is dead, right? But the need for communication doesn't die. And what we tried to do was to really look at story making as opposed to storytelling, which is to curate and create experiences for people that money cannot buy, but they can get it only if they have a MasterCard. So that was the whole premise. And we said, how do we create and curate these experiences? Because it's very expensive on the one hand. And number two, it is how do you deliver it at scale and fulfill them flawlessly? Because if the experience is negative, you accomplish exactly the opposite objective, which we don't want. So that's actually, we thought for that, sponsorships is the right route. So we went and started looking, and coincidentally, we also called them passion points. So we looked at 10 passion points for our consumers. Sports is one passion point, music is one, shopping is one, of course, that's where our consumption occasions are. So we looked at 10 different passion points, and in each passion point, we were identifying the right kind of properties or assets, and then go associate with ourselves and negotiate upfront that we are going to be a little crazy, a little out of the box, and flexibility is the name of the game for us to co-curate these kind of experiences for our consumers. And what's been amazing is the kind of momentum that we have been having as a result of which, and from being somewhere at the top 87th brand in the world, we have come to being a top 10 brand in the world. So which is really fantastic for us. And consumers really become your advocates once they have seen the kind of extraordinary experiences that they get through MasterCard. So which has been phenomenal. So you're bringing one angle, we're bringing another angle, and I'm sure there'll be so many other angles, but sponsorships, I guess, is here to stay. But just switching a gear a little bit, today it's very fashionable to talk about performance marketing.
Yeah.
And brand marketing seems to be a little outdated. And you've got two breeds, performance marketers and brand marketers. How do you view them? You as Pedro and at your company, how do you look at brand marketing versus performance marketing?
Yeah. I think we're in the same boat as everyone else, trying to be kind of the first people to try to write the book on full funnel marketing, because I think that's what's going to be. Companies will have to do both very well. The world is kind of segregated today a little bit into people that are amazing at bottom of the funnel, right? The direct to consumer companies and all the companies that are more digital natives, that's where they shine. And then you have more the classic CPGs that are amazing at top of the funnel. And it's tough, right? Because you have to bring capabilities and mindsets from kind of different pieces of marketing to put the full funnel together and to understand the consumer journey and how do they interact with each other. And that's kind of the journey we've been going through with some of our peers. Our kind of digital native piece of the business, direct to consumer, started in ZX Ventures. So in our case, had kind of a incremental layer of complexity, because these two organizations, direct to consumer and the top of the funnel, if you were sitting in different pieces of the organization. The beauty right now is that we have our own internal agency, Draftline, and now we are putting things more together within Draftline, right? So how do you create this kind of constant build, measure, learn cycle of campaigns and activities and innovation that you do everything? But it's really it's funny because I know a lot of startups and startups that we invest in, or other startups that we have a relationship, and they all call me, say, look, we got to get better at top of the funnel marketing. We are performance marketers, but we don't know how to create brands that create, a relationship and a bond with our consumers. And then within some other organizations, people are like, we got to go get better at performance marketing and direct to consumer. So today's really, I think the book is to be written. Today is rare that you see companies that are amazing at both. Maybe there are some exceptions. One company that I've been very impressed, right? Especially based on the results of last week, is Nike. Nike is one company that it's really has always been a great top of the funnel marketer, but what they've been accomplishing direct to consumers is also amazing.
Absolutely. In fact, I think I like the way when you talk about the full funnel of marketing, as opposed to, it's not a question of brand versus performance, but it's brand and performance. And I think that's a great way of actually summarizing what it is. And my concern is, and for the industry and for the craft of marketing, is we keep swinging from one extreme to the other extreme. And now there is so much amount of performance marketing, which is very short-term oriented, which is single campaign oriented, that unfortunately brands are getting neglected to some extent, or to a large extent, I would say. And that's going to be a pity, because if you fast forward a little bit, and when we enter what I call as the fifth paradigm of marketing, where there is going to be so much of technology, so much of data, there's going to be a democratization of the competing field. And when brands have to compete against each other in an aggressive fashion, it's not on price or the features, but to be on emotions and brand and trust. And that's what matters. So I think brand building is something which marketers have to realize sooner than later, how critical it is for the imminent future.
Yeah, the way we talk to the team here, Raj, is that brands, they are big and they are successful because they improve consumers' lives in a certain way, right? So every brand, we have like $18 billion brands, brands that sell more than $1 billion. If you are $1 billion brands and consumers are taking their hard-earned money, and putting $1 billion in our pockets because these brands are doing something for them. And I think the main role of marketers is to understand exactly what these brands are doing in people's lives and how they can do it every day better and better and better, So I totally agree with you. If brands, they start being too tactical and they chase culture for culture's sake, and they forget a little bit why consumers every day are taking their hard-earned money and buying your product, then they get lost over time, for sure.
Totally agree with you. And talking of this fifth paradigm, which brings me to my next point, which is, I write in my book that there are four paradigms that we have gone through so far. The first paradigm was on product marketing. Second was emotional marketing. Third one was about internet and data-driven marketing. Fourth one is a true digital mobile and social marketing. So we've gone through four phases, and now we are at the verge of the fifth paradigm. In every preceding paradigm, the paradigm shift was enabled or driven by two technologies at a time, typically. So for example, from paradigm 3 to 4, it was essentially mobile and social platforms. From 2 to 3 was internet and data analytics that got deployed in marketing. Now we are at the verge of the fifth paradigm, which is going to be ushered in by more than 24 technologies, like AI, AR, VR, wearables, Internet of Things, and so on and so forth. We got 24 of them, which is going to really, really change how marketing will be done. Now, the question is, from your point of view, when you look at this, what technologies are you grappling with and think are most interesting and promising for the immediate future?
Yeah, for us, it's a challenge because our beer, is in essence brings people together. It's about human connections and it's about creating relationships. And a lot of these technologies today, I think the jury is out on whether they are bringing people closer together or not, right? If you think about AR, VR, and things like that, we hope that we are the company that is going to keep people socializing and meeting and getting to know each other in a physical. There's a lot of evidence, right, that happiness and longevity is driven by meaningful connections that are done in the physical world. And we in a way we are trying to do exactly that. There was some interesting data that I was seeing this morning. Scott Galloway put a post on LinkedIn. It's like we are going to the wrong direction, right? If you take a look in the 90s, 3% of people said that they didn't have any friends. Today is 15% of people saying that they don't have any friends. Back in the 90s, 40% of people would say that they have more than 10 friends. And today is less than 15% of people saying that they have more than 10 friends. So we really think that the purpose of beer and of our company of bring people together needs to be a very prevalent and again, we have to be mindful that we are pushing for that. Now, there is one technology that we're very excited about that we've been using a lot, which is AI. AI, in a way, in its ability for you to understand people better and offer the right product to the right person at the right time. It basically makes your whole marketing much more, it's not even more productive, it's better, right? Because people don't want to be interrupted by messages and by products and by things that they don't care about. And by understanding consumers in a 10x way and being much more predictive on what they were going to want, when they're going to want it, and being able to offer that, I think that really can take marketing, at least in beer, to a completely new level. So that's one that we're very keen on, and we've been doing a lot of things on it.
Yeah, I think what you said is fascinating, right? When you talk about people are becoming more and more lonely, and post probably this pandemic, it has even worsened the situation. And your reference to the LinkedIn post this morning, it resonates very well as a cultural phenomena at this point in time. And if you are in a position to connect people back together again, because people are social animals, if you can call them animals in a politically incorrect way, but people are social animals and they do need that societal connection. And you're absolutely right. When you have healthy relationships, healthy friendships, you have got your quality of life improves dramatically, your longevity goes up, and your health state of well-being is fantastic. Interestingly, you are looking at your company's product, which primarily say beer, as the connector to this. Completely unrelated, and you and I never had this discussion before. When we looked at MasterCard and said 7 years back now, we said, how do we actually look at ourselves? And we said, we are all about connecting people to priceless possibilities. Because we are a network, we are all about connecting. And we said, whatever is priceless is like our soul of our brand. And possibilities is what we will enable. And that's how our entire story-making strategy came about. So it's fascinating. Both of us look at connecting in some form or a fashion. You're talking about people to people. We're talking people to possibilities. Either way, it's a pretty fascinating in that sense. The other point I wanted to make was about AI. I keep saying that AI is probably the single biggest disruptor of marketing at this point in time. And you're quite right. It's not just about productivity. It's about making really marketing even better and taking it to a completely different level, whether it is enablement of real-time marketing based on real-time analytics, or it is about real-time optimization to get a better and a better product, or it is reducing the costs, increasing the productivity. There are so many things that it actually does. I feel literally like a kid in a candy store where I look at the kind of applications that AI can actually bring to the table, and that's fascinating. Are you looking at any other technologies like AR, VR at this point in time?
Yeah, we are. I mean, this one again. I think technology. We gotta watch out, for technology. Facebook, for example, right? Facebook allows me to connect with people all over the world that I couldn't connect when I was in college in the UK, for example. So technology has a big role, to connect people. I think to the extent that they do that in an even more human way, in a more real way, I think it's going to be even better. And yeah, we are looking at AI and VR. The world is going to move that way, and we know that, and we got to be prepared for that world.
Awesome. Yeah, in fact, I think when I keep talking to many of the marketers, everyone is sort of trying to get their feet wet, dipping their toes in, and trying to figure out what potentially this could be. My own feeling is that augmented reality and virtual reality are going to totally alter the landscape as new ways of interacting and engaging with consumers, for brands particularly, and for them to interact, and for them means for the consumers to interact with the content that they are really cool about and that they would like to really interact with. So that's something which is fantastic. Now, the other question I wanted to ask you is, pandemic has had a devastating effect, around the world. And I know the countries that you come from and I come from, coincidentally, are probably the worst affected. I'm from India, which is still going through the grips of the crisis, and Brazil, where you come from, also is unfortunately going through a similar journey. Plus, in Brazil, there is also the hunger pandemic, in addition to the health pandemic itself. So it's most unfortunate that this is what we are going through. But as a company, how did you deal with this pandemic over the last 15 months or whatever is the time? And secondly, did you notice any irreversible changes because of the pandemic that you say, you know what, we never thought of doing things like this before pandemic, but now, having gone through pandemic, this is how we'll be taking our future forward?
Yeah. So as a global company, Raja, we could see what was going on in China very early on the pandemic. So we set up kind of a global task force in the first week of March, which was really soon. And this pandemic was kind of different in a ways of working, because the problem hit all the countries at the same time, and the problem was the same, right? And having a global market organization that could put their brains together at the same time to try to tackle the same problem, I think for us was a light bulb on how when the whole marketing community works at the same time, creativity all over the place, how we can do a much better job. So there were a couple of things that we decided very early on. So the first one is, we will not treat people as consumers. At that point in time in the pandemic, we didn't think that selling beer or making people, increase their bonding with beer brands was the right thing to do. So we said, how can we, use the channels that we have, the media that we have, and the tools that we have in order to provide people with whatever needs they have, irrespective of is whether it's drinking beer or not. So we start producing. I mean, we produce in the process of brewing. Of course, we produce alcohol. So we're starting producing hand sanitizers, in our breweries. We had infrastructure for distribution of food, for example. So in Colombia, they had a shortage of food distribution. We have one of the best logistics systems in the country, and we started distributing food in Colombia and in Ecuador. There were a lot of things, that we could do that were not necessarily selling beer. And that completely, I think, changed our mindset from being much more focused on people instead of just thinking about consumers. The second one that really changed was about agility, right? Agility, when you are running your business on a day-to-day, you say, oh, you got to be more agile. That's okay. That's good for business. During a pandemic, being agile could mean saving lives or saving businesses. So another example is, when the pandemic hit in the UK, a lot of the bars and restaurants, they had like a 1 month run rate, and if they didn't reopen 1 month, they would go bankrupt. And in 1 week, we put out a campaign which is called Save Pub Lives, that consumers could buy, a prepaid credit card to spend on that specific bar, and we'll kind of double the amount of money that they could spend. So they will buy like a 50-pound card, and they could, whenever the bar reopens, we could, they could spend 100 pounds, and the bar would get the money at that point in time, right? So they would have more cash flow to survive the pandemic, and we helped save a lot of bars with that. So I think agility is also a big one. And then the third one, collaboration. Whenever we have a hard problem, having the whole world working on the same problem at the same time, we found it was kind of magic. In terms of the changes, there are a lot of changes, that we see. I think this pandemic has really accelerated a lot of the trends that we've seen for a long time. And one of them is in-home consumption, right? And beer has been a product that people consume a lot, especially in emerging markets, out of home, right, in bars and restaurants. But during the pandemic, people went back home, and then they made investments, and they acquire new habits that are sticky, right? So, for example, cooking. I don't know about you, but I was not a big on cooking and things like that. But I started cooking during the weekends with my kids, and sometimes at night. And you get interested, and then you buy some machines, and you buy some stuff, and then you kind of out of the COVID, but you liked it, and you stick to it. People bought their Peloton bikes, their Peloton treadmills, instead of going to the gym. They invested in bigger TVs. They subscribed to Netflix and all that stuff. So I think this thing of in-home is one that we saw a step change, and we don't see that in-home economy going back as fast as other things that happened during the pandemic.
Got it. Yeah, I think there have been a lot of irreversible changes, rightly so, because of the pandemic, whether it is the adoption of digital to a much deeper extent. And I have seen some statistics which show that the digital payments, for example, adoption has gone up by almost what would have naturally happened in 7 years in the matter of just 1 year. And they got remote learning, remote working, all these things, and absolutely changes that are probably lasting and quite irreversible. So that's pretty fascinating. Now, do you think that sponsorships will get impacted in the future? Obviously, during the pandemic, sponsorships, many events got shut down or they got postponed, etc. But post-pandemic, do you see any fundamental shift or change or not regarding sponsorships?
Yeah. So again, I think the deals, the partnerships will have to focus much more on adding value to people's lives instead of interrupting them. So our partners, were very, during the pandemic, they were very flexible on some of the things. So, for example, in the US, we did a partnership with Microsoft and the NBA in order to have kind of, I don't know if you've seen that, but it's called the Michelob Ultra Courtside, where people are watching, the games live, in the stadium, but it was actually through, technology and virtual, presence. And it was amazing. It was amazing for the NBA. It was amazing for, for Microsoft. It was great, for us. And of course, that had to count with a lot of flexibility from the NBA. It was completely new. That thing took like 6 weeks, to kind of be implemented after they gave the go ahead. In football, right? One thing that happened during the pandemic is that there used to be a lot of blood drives done in stadiums and things like that. And because people are not leaving their homes, the blood donations start going down dramatically. So people that were not suffering from COVID, but they suffer from other, diseases, they will start being impacted by the lack of blood. And again, with our partners, in the NFL and the stadiums that we sponsor, we did a campaign called One Team in the US, where we are diverting our sponsorship dollars to create blood drives and have people donating blood. So I think one of the main things that will change in sponsorship going forward is both the owners of the assets and the companies thinking much more about how do I add to the experience? How do I create something that adds value instead of how can I use the eyeballs that I have on my sport to put billboards and your brand around it?
Got it. That's very powerful. Let me just switch gears and ask you a question around talent. Now, particularly post-pandemic, when things are coming back to normalcy, hopefully sooner than later, marketing programs will kick back in full swing, if not already done, and you need talent to execute it. So how are you finding the right talent for the future, and how are you able to hire them the way you would want?
Yeah, we, Raj, in a way, we do a lot of the things that the other companies do, in terms of recruitment, and we go out to schools and we hire MBAs and we have a big, management trainee program and all that. But one interesting thing is, when we started ZX, we started putting a lot of analytics behind our recruitment efforts to see, and we tested different things. And one of the things that was really interesting to see is that we would hire people and we would have like a very data-based selection process, and then we evaluate everybody that we hired 6 months, 1 year out, and we'll kind of try to correlate what are the things that in terms of recruitment that works. And the number one for us, the most productive, the most successful kind of way to recruit amazing people is recommendations from our own employees. So it's kind of great talent attracts great talent. And we had kind of a formal process that if you recommend someone and the person gets approved and stay for 6 months, you get a financial reward for that. And that was our most successful recruitment tool. For the last 5 years actually in ZX, and then we brought that thing to the core business. So it's this old saying that great people attract great people prove mathematically to be an amazing way of continuing to recruit amazing talent.
Fascinating. I think some of the companies probably still are not doing something of this sort, but time and again, whether it is your customers or your employees, you can ask them to get their likes, and they would actually get them. So it's like we used to call them in one of the earlier companies I worked with, Citibank. We used to run something called staff get member, member get member, those kind of programs, and they used to work extremely well, and interesting to see it being applied in yet another industry as well, which is terrific. Now, a couple of quick questions on talent. One is in terms of how do you train your talent? Do you do it in-house? Do you have, do you identify the gaps? How do you go about training and making sure with all the changes that are happening in the environment that they are coming up the curve and staying contemporary?
It's a great question, Raj, because today, as important as hiring the right people is to train them, because the marketing skill set is getting obsolete so fast that if you don't train people and they work really hard and just do the same whatever, we're going to be left behind, right? So I was lucky when I got in marketing in 2006. Things were evolving, process and platforms will evolve, but it's not at all to the speed that they are evolving today. So a couple of things. One thing we elevated, we have a culture and capabilities function that is managed by Jody that and she was doing an amazing job here in the US, and we elevated that to a global position. And all the VPs of marketing, all the zones now, they have a position on capabilities reporting directly into them. So we elevated kind of the importance of providing capability. Second thing, we treat it as a school, as a permanent school. So we have like a marketing academy. There's like formal training, right? People need to do hours of work, every single week, and they are being trained on the newest things that are out there, be it platforms or skill set, and they assess by it. So one of the things that we do as well is to use. We have a sort of competitive culture, so we put out rankings out there, and prizes and things like that, and we give exposure to the people that are doing well. So we're kind of using that. And so we have the academy. Then we have Spark sessions. You were generous enough to do one of them, with us, with our marketing team. So we bring people that we believe are best in class, in some of the capabilities or the skill set, and we have them to talk to us. And then we have a third leg of our capabilities program, which is called the labs, which is, we get things that are really hard problems that we are facing in some markets around the world. And then we have the whole marketing team around the world to study that case and to work together on trying to solve it, so they can try to put in practice some of the skill set and capabilities that they're learning in the formal world. So again, it's a never-ending journey. The team there has been doing an amazing job. We measure the capabilities and we measure the end results, and it's really been evolving. I'm super excited about it. The interesting thing this year is that we open it up not only for the market organization, we open the program up for the whole organization. So whoever wants to join the Market Academy can join. We had Brito, our CEO, joining the Market Academy. We had a David Almeida, which is our CTO, joining the Market Academy. And it's really a time commitment, and they went through it and they loved it. So that's
so it's 2 hours a week for how many weeks?
So it's a whole year. It's like throughout we have modules. You can do it at your own time, because those are our digital and virtual models. The Spark sessions and the labs are more fixed time, but it's a permanent program. It's 52 weeks a year.
Extraordinary. Last 2 points I have, and also before I jump into them, we have a question from one of the audience. His name is Antonio Torres. So he's asking, you have won so many awards at Cannes. Do they drive sales also? And is there any correlation between award winning and sales driving? Particularly, he's asking because his leadership always asks, "What is the ROI for your campaign?"
It's an amazing question. I struggled with that question for a while, Raj. I need to say Miguel Patricio, which is my predecessor. He started that journey, right, in terms of creativity, and we got to be more creative. And at the beginning, we discussed a little bit about awards and the importance of awards, because in a way, these awards, they judge creativity. And creativity has one element, which is originality. And sometimes to drive sale, especially in a global organization like us, you don't have to create anything original. You have to take something that already was implemented somewhere else, and you have to copy and do it better, and sometimes this thing is going to be even better than creating something new. So we always said, should we kind of create an environment where everybody will try to be original instead of driving sales or not? And that was a big discussion that we have internally. At the end, we tried to have the best of both worlds. So we have an internal Cannes event, which is called Creative X. And in that one, we measure effective and business results. And it's very easy for us to do that because we have all the data, it's inside the company and things like that. So in order for you to qualify to be shortlisted or to receive an award in our internal award, you have to pass through the business results filter. And then, this work goes to Cannes and goes to other places. So in a way, when we win in Cannes, it's creative, but it's also effective because we're measuring this internally. And there's some work that it's not, didn't pass because it came later after our internal awards or whatever. But the funny thing that we see is that 80% of the work that got awards in Cannes, they got awards in our internal awards, right? So, which means that creativity is also driving business results. So today, I think we used to have a lot of discussion. Today, we have no doubt that creativity, at least for us, is driving business results.
This is fantastic. In fact, it's often sort of the fashionable thing to say, particularly for the quantitative-minded folks, that, this is creative stuff. And the key thing is almost implying that this is fluffy and it doesn't drive business results. But nothing can be far from truth, because if the creativity is rightly deployed for the differentiation of the brand, for influencing the preference for the brand, why would it not make a difference to the sales? And the key thing is, do we have credible frameworks to measure the effectiveness and the ROI of these campaigns or not? I think that's probably the big question. But Antonio, thank you very much for asking the question.
Right, so the last just about to bridge these two worlds, there's this world by this saying, Kevin Roberts from Such and Such used to say that great advertising needs to make you laugh, cry, or think. so it needs to trigger emotion. And in a way, in order to move a brand, you have to create emotion, and it's very hard to create that emotion. It's something that people have seen 10,000 times, so in a way you can bridge these two worlds of creativity. It needs to trigger emotion that is going to create a new perception about your brand. So at the end, I mean, today we are very convinced that these things, they are coming together.
Absolutely. Wonderful. We have, I believe, 1 minute. So before we close down, any advice for the marketers from your side?
Yeah, I think, Raja, this thing about, and I think you are a reference for that. The world is moving very fast, and consumers are moving, and they're changing every single day. And the skill set that you need in order to offer, the right solutions for these consumers also are changing very, very, very fast. So one of the fundamental things for marketers these days is being obsessed about people, right? Not only about consumers, but understanding people as human beings, not only as buyers of your product. So having an obsession around that, use technology to do that better, right? We talk about AI. And the second thing is update yourself every week. You are a reference for me on that, because you spend like 5 hours a week, learning new things and trying new things. I think the marketers that are not able to update themselves every single week and learn, and they are curious about it, they're gonna get obsolete super quick. So my two pieces of advice for marketers is, be obsessed about people, be obsessed about human beings, about solving their problems, and update yourself on the way to get there.
Awesome. So Pedro, thank you so very much. That was extremely insightful and very, very valuable. Thank you so very much, and hope to do it again with you sometime soon in the near future. But thank you very much. And to all our viewers and listeners, thank you very much for being with us. If you have any feedback on how to make this more relevant, more useful, and more valuable to you, please go ahead and send your messages to me. Would really appreciate the feedback. And this is all again about you and what is valuable and useful to you. And I'm happy to take this LinkedIn Live anywhere that's going to be of more value to you all. So thank you very much. And Pedro, please stay safe and take